Truth, lies, shenanigans.
Yes, so there's this guy that's under investigation in the UK. His name is Kenneth Law. He's a Canadian, he was a Canadian chef, and has been linked to 88 deaths. So he's accused of selling more than 1,200 lethal kits online to people contemplating suicide in about 40 countries. He was said to have boasted that some buyers had told him he was doing God's work.
Mm.
Law was arrested and charged on 2 counts of counseling and aiding suicide and the deaths of 2 Canadians. So, guys, my question is the power to provide a painless end ever morally justified?
So did you say 2 deaths? I thought it was like 88 deaths.
He did, but he was charged on the two
Charged
Canadian.
on
Like,
2.
that's what they're actually going to get him for. Yeah,
Okay.
basically.
Okay.
But
All
he
right.
is linked to 88 suicides.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, it's from what I read, it's almost 101 now. It's up to 101 link that he's linked to.
Oh, that's
So
horrible.
yeah.
Okay.
Now, see, I'll start off. I got to be honest. I mean, if someone is hell bent on ending their life, they're going to find a way, and there is that. So when I look at this guy, there's no reason or no excuse to make it easy. And that's the problem that I have is that he's using his means to make it easy, right? Because some people are on the fence sometimes or they're going through a crisis in the moment. And having easy access to taking your life leads to regretful actions. And of course, once they're gone, they can no longer regret it. But there are people who have tried to commit suicide, survived, and regretted that action. So making it easy is not a good way. And, you know, I don't like that he was trying to profit.
Part of the problem too is that he was counseling and aiding people. So like you were saying, people who were on the fence, he was nudging them. Like he was nudging them. This is the action you should be taking.
Okay.
And that's where the Peel police in the Toronto region nabbed him. So he's already in the system in Ontario right now, Johnny. So after the announcement out of the UK, Peel Regional Police announced that Mr. Law is facing an additional 12 charges in connection to deaths with people across Ontario, on top of the existing 4. And when I start reading these community names, I'm familiar with all of them, and to know that this vile individual is preying on vulnerable people, and he's definitely getting some kind of satisfaction out of their end. So I really, really hope that he gets.
He was definitely getting a monetary satisfaction.
Yeah,
Oh,
so I
sure.
really hope that they really go after him at a local level, at a provincial level, and if this goes to a national level, at least in Canada, extradition laws aren't going to come into play. But I hope that he will also face crimes for basically, like, these are international crimes.
Yeah.
So he needs to be held account at every level of what he's done, because it's these people who did end their lives, their families' lives have changed forever. There's no coming back from that. So
Yeah.
I really
No.
hope that they go after this guy, because he's a special brand of individual.
Yeah, he said at one point that the reason that he was doing it was to provide for his family. And I get it. Times are hard because he apparently was a restaurant owner. And during the pandemic, he lost his restaurant, right? And a lot of people did that. And so to make ends meet, he came up with this plan. But
So random.
and then like I said, he said, he actually said that when he was in court, he was just trying to provide for his family. But exploiting someone's vulnerability for financial gain, that's a hard no for me. There's got to be a
That's
line
weird.
that we cross that we don't cross. So what do you think, Maria?
How was he like even marketing his services? Like that's my first initial thought.
Right.
And also like was this like the satisfaction aspect of it all? Like it could have been monetary, but it could have been even more perverse. Like
Yeah.
what is he getting from this? Is this a power trip? Is like I think someone in the chat was like, oh, he's basically playing God, and yeah, he's doing that. So I'm curious as to like how he found these like vulnerable individuals.
Yeah, that is an interesting way. And I know that he did have a website. It's down now, of course, but he did have a website, and I'm sure that certain SEO or certain ways that he was able to get, because there's teens, and there's most of his victims were pretty young, so they're already kind of looking up those things on the internet and happen to find him probably by some certain keywords, I'm sure.
Yeah, and
I'm
that's it.
curious,
He was
Rob.
just hosting a number of self-harm websites. So he was
Right.
like you were saying, anyone who's thinking about it has that ideation, puts those search words into an engine, and comes
He
back
had
with
it
this.
set
So,
up. Yeah.
oh yeah, like it was set up.
So, Rob, there's this issue of assisted suicide because, some people want to, leave this earth because maybe they're dealing with a severe illness, maybe they're, um, in pain, maybe they're struggling. And I mean, it begs the question, you know, are assisted suicides okay? Are they reasonable? Should we be helping people as opposed to trying to prevent suicide? Should, if this is what they want to do, help them do it in a proper way. I mean, I know you have in your life dealt with both sides. You've dealt with a brother who's committed suicide, and you've also had a father who was assisted in the transition, had an assisted transition. I mean, what are your thoughts?
Well, the medical assistance in dying was actually that whole process was very eye-opening. The series of checks and balances that are in place to ensure that there's no exploitation, that no one is being taken advantage of, to make sure that their interests are being served. All the checks and balances are there, and I was really surprised to see how stringent it was. Um, but this online do it your DIY kit, no, no, because I know that basically it was sodium nitrite, and which is a food preservative, but he was including like a respirator, the rubber hoses, so that you can basically inhale too much of it, and that's what was causing people's demise.
Oh, it's interesting.
Um,
I was looking it up and I couldn't find
Yeah,
anyone who
we
was
couldn't
willing to,
find it either.
I couldn't find anyone who
Yeah.
was willing to put out the
I say you have to
process.
look at Canadian news sites.
Oh.
You had to look up north of the border.
Clearly.
All right. That, you know what? In this instance, yeah, the schmuck in question is one of ours. So, apologies for that.
All right.
Yeah, it's what he's doing is it's not even close to the medical assistance in dying. It's not even close to a medically assisted suicide. It's horrendous. It's horrendous that he's luring them to a website and then he's giving them an out. He's encouraging them to take the out.
Do we know how much he was getting for each suicide kit?
They didn't really talk about his profits, but it just said how much he sold, over 1,000 or 1,200. Yeah, lethal kits.
Wow. I mean, I've never dealt with anyone who had committed suicide, so I don't even know what that must feel like, or to lose someone in that way. So I know, like I said, I know Robbie, you have, but these young
that's it. I mean,
kids.
if it's medically assisted, the family has prepared for it. You support your family member's decision. You love them, and you do what you can. If it's the opposite end of the spectrum, if it's sudden, violent, and unexpected, that's when the train wreck just goes through your life. And I mean, there's always that damage that just lives there. You learn to live with it, and you try to find good ways to cope with it. And I think that by speaking very honestly and openly about getting help when you're having those thoughts, that ideation. You need to connect with the right resources. And unfortunately, people may have been looking for the right resources and found him, and he pushed them over the edge. That's really vile.
It is.
He exploited their pain.
At
what they
their
were
worst
suffering.
moment, at their lowest, he exploited it and just, go ahead, do it.
Yeah.
Go ahead, do it.
Yeah. All right. Mike Winter says a lot of people who are terminally ill are tired of fighting. This is not a black or white issue. Like most of life, there are nuances to be considered. And as you said, Marielle, Jacqueline Robb said, basically playing God, which is appalling. All right, I just want to say, if you or someone you know is struggling with thoughts of suicide, help is available. Reach out to the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, 1-800-273-TALK, 8255. All right, is this truth, lies, or shenanigans?
This is some truth, unfortunately.
Some awful truth. Awful, awful truth.